this might blow your mind. The majority of money habits are cemented by age 7.
Oh, God. Wait a minute.
The majority.
I have a 5-year-old. I'm like, what am I doing?
You're doing the math.
Personal inventory. What are we doing?
I wanted to take us back for folks that might not be as familiar with your work.
Yeah, absolutely.
And have that just a discussion about what your experience was like as a child actor.
Sure.
And you had already kind of mentioned making a lot of money in a short amount of time and seemingly having very little guidance as to how to manage that money. So
right.
Can you walk me through how child actors get paid, how you maybe specifically got paid?
Okay.
And what ended up happening with all of that money?
Okay. So basically, it's really interesting to unpack, but it's hard because there's so many levels here. When you're a child actor, let's say you get on a TV show, you start at a very like base level, and if you get renewed for a season 2, a season 3, you're able to renegotiate just like an adult would. And generally, because you're a child, if you haven't done things in the past, your rate isn't high to begin with. So
right.
they're catching you at a low already. And all it costs is your childhood. But essentially, like, you know, you're getting that. And also I should mention that you are working less hours. So if they're
right.
if they are paying you a rate that's, you know, you're working less hours too. And it's not like you are working in an adult environment, but you're not working the same as an adult
hours.
Right. Until you're like 16 and emancipated because you choose to, or you're 18, which is what I did.
Wow.
I didn't emancipate. So as the seasons progressed, my rate was negotiable. And so I think at my height, I was making like maybe $10,000 to $13,000 a week, which isn't much when you think about what creators make. And, but at the time, for a Disney Channel show, that was top of show, you know, other than like our guest stars that we would come. I think I'm pretty sure that I was favored nations with Shia LaBeouf, who was my co-star on Even Stevens. And then I think I did a movie called Cadet Kelly with Hilary Duff. And I'm pretty sure she got more than me because I don't think she had a favored nations with her cast, and her rate was higher, you know.
When you say favored nations, can you tell us what that is?
Absolutely. So favored nations is when, and I don't actually know why it's called that, which is my own ignorant thing that I need to rectify. But basically, it promises that no one else is making more than you. And that if you're a co-star and you are putting in the same hours and you're basically the same appeal, because it was both of our show, then he can't make more than me.
Got it.
And so that's a very important thing in terms of negotiation. And a lot of times the casts will unite to kind of have that mentality of all kind of making the same. I think like
kind
Friends,
of what Friends did, right? Everybody on Friends was like, no one's going to make more. We're all going to make more.
Yeah, and it was at that time too, which I find really interesting. It was right around that time that Friends was like they were becoming millionaires from their episodes.
Phenomenon.
Yeah, and which, by the way, like they didn't even have merch back then. In the you know, what was that, like 2000 pretty much was when we were really filming.
99. Yeah.
Yeah. And so, yeah, you know, I was making that money, so it wasn't a lot. And then so much of that goes away. And then you start making more money in your residuals. So then you start to make money for not doing anything. And then if you're doing other projects, it's just residual passive income. And so if you're not...
Right. If the show continues, even if you're not producing it, right, you're getting a cut of every episode that's shown, right? And that's what...
As you should, for sure. And,
totally.
And, you know, yeah, I mean... You're getting that. And then in 10 cycles time, if they show the episode every time that it's being shown, it drops 10%. So after 10 years,
wow,
you get a significant drop off, which is why my theory of why child actors are so bamboozled by making absolutely no money within a 10-year, like that's when they hit their limit. Like that's when they hit their rock bottom, is like their money starts to dwindle away and they haven't learned how to save it properly. And they're so you know what I mean? Like it's that old thing of like, it's passive income. It's not income you live on. And yet if you're not being hired for things, I didn't exactly have the opportunity to get a normal job. Like, I was actually really interested in babysitting at that time. I always sought out to be normal. I always was like,
Hmm.
what is it like to just go to regular high school? I've written about this before. And
Yeah.
I wanted that experience of being around children. And I still, to this day, after having two kids, I feel like it could have been really cool to just have those sort of normal sets of responsibilities
Yeah.
and to be like paid for that. And it didn't have to be some inflated value number. It could have just been what was worth my time.
Right.
So I didn't do that. But I did go to college and, had a normal amount of debt that people have. And so something I will mention is the Cougan Law is a really vital law
Yes.
for child actors. And beyond the residuals, what was happening was I was living off of residuals, and then eventually I was living off of the Cougan Fund because that was tucked away from me to go to college. I left college to do Beauty and the Beast, as you saw on
Yeah.
Broadway. And at that point, I had really become a like a I don't know, a juggernaut at like I'm going to do a book deal, I'm going to do a record deal. ICM is invested in my career now.
Yeah.
I'd left my old agency and was like trying to be packaged essentially. And so my mom, a lot of this is generational too, which we should definitely get into.
It is. Yeah.
I acquired their ignorance. Um
We've
and
talked about it extensively on the show. This might blow your mind. The majority of money habits are cemented by age 7.
oh
So
god, wait a
the
minute.
majority.
I have a 5-year-old. I'm like, what am I
You're
doing?
doing the math.
Personal inventory. What are we doing? I'll tell you what. We're working really hard. So, and she sees mom and dad go to work all the
Yeah.
time, and they're in the house, they're together, we're not fighting, we love working together.
Totally.
So I
Yeah.
think that's good.
Yeah, but I think we ignorantly think, oh, if I'm quote unquote bad with money, or if, I have some sort of financial trauma, it's like entirely my fault. And it's one, very societal or systemic. And the second thing is that it's so influenced by the way we saw other people in our lives manage money,
Oh
largely
my
our
God.
family.
Now you just gave me some anxiety.
Oh, I didn't. I was meant to be
I love it.
reassuring.
No, I love it. No, I love it. It's really
I was meant to
good.
be
I love it.
you letting off the hook.
You're so
But
smart, and it's so wonderful to hear that. And no, but like really though, money and value are so important for women, and
yes.
they're actually so intrinsically tied to young female child actors.
Mm,
And what ends up happening when you go through that process of losing your passive income without any investments
yeah.
is so humiliating. You start thinking desperately, you start making desperate moves. I really attribute my desperation and essentially what ended up becoming like an addiction to people, places, and things, that you hear about in either Al Anon or AA. And like, I'm not actively working a program, I just been to a lot of meetings.
Yeah.
And so I kind of have taken a lot of those teachings to heart and applied them without a sponsor. But it matters a lot to me to have some sort of accountability and some perspective. If I'm going to go and tell people like, hey, you know, I'm here for you. Talk to me. Tell me how can I help? I want to be of service, but it needs to be. Sometimes I actually get scared because I'm like, I need to be learning all the time. Like I need to be the one that has all the answers. But,
Yeah.
you know, I digress again.
No, I cut you off. I think we were talking about the Cougan Law, and I really want you to explain it because I think it's really important.
Wonderful. I love how like on it you are. So 30% of all of my paychecks when I was a minor would go into a Cougan fund. I believe it was managed by the union. And that money would be held, and then it was a fund yeah, it was a fund. And it would be accessible when I turned 18. Uh, Honestly, don't remember when I turned 18 how accessible that was. I think my mom must have handled all
Yeah.
of the paperwork on that. But I would think if I were to be a stage parent, that would be an excellent time in a child's life to fully ramp them up into understanding, you know, we have
responsibility
X amount. What are we going to do with it? You know, and that would be an excellent time to do that if you weren't doing it beforehand for some reason or another. Yeah.
So what happened instead?
Bad stuff.